So welcome again. In this section, we're going to talk about something quite important, and that is our local data. That is the data that we record on our device as opposed to the one that is on the cloud. And before we jump into actual programming it, I want to show you why we need that. I currently have both my simulator and emulator loaded up, and in my Android application I have a list called party, and maybe in my iOS one I add another one called picnic. So now we have a new list in either of these guys. Now let's go ahead and see what happens when we run this application one more time. So I'm going to go to my Visual Studio, and I'm currently on the Android side, so I'm going to run that. So we'll wait for our emulator to boot up again. And once it shows up on my Google emulator again, we will see that that list is actually gone. And that's simply because every time that we come to list activity, what happens is it gets an instance from the app data, sets the current user, and prepares the very fresh lists. And of course, that's not really what we want. We want to make sure that our data and our lists are being stored somewhere. It doesn't make sense that every time that we rerun our application, we have to redo essentially everything. And I'm going to show you that the same thing is actually happening with our iOS, simply because no one is storing this information. So what we want to do in principle is we want to write these data and these lists to somewhere on our disk, and then every time the application loads up, we want to read those values to make sure that it represents the latest set of information that we have. So let's move on, and in the next few lessons we're going to add several different classes that they store our information on the disk, and then we're going to read those information back to our application.